Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. We are delighted to welcome Shannon Watts. Many of you know her from her Moms Demand Action Days, but she has continued to go on to more and more endeavors and is a prolific writer. She is out with a new book. Let me get the title right. Fired Up: How to Turn Your Spark into a Flame and Come Alive at Any Age. Wow. That sounds interesting. What is that about? And tell us the story.
Thanks so much, Jen. I led Moms Demand Action for 11 years. I was a full-time volunteer, and I decided to step back in 22 just because I wanted to hand the torch over to someone else. It was time. And I thought I would take a break. And I was running on the treadmill one night and I looked down and Maria Shriver is calling me. I don't know Maria. And so, of course, as one does, you get off the treadmill and answer that call. And she said, I have a book imprint. I would love for you to write a book for me. And I said, sure. Okay. About what? And she said, what have you learned about women, working with women in your career and in your activism? And that could obviously be, a trilogy. But what it came down to, the more I sat with this idea and thought about it, is something I had seen over and over again, which is that men are socialized to fulfill their desires and women are socialized to fulfill their obligations.
Mm.
And it prevents us from pursuing our desires in life and figuring out what lights us up and what we want. There's a reason that we fear our fire. It's not because we're weak, it's actually because we're wise, right? We know the system is set up to be obstacles at every step of the way. So I interview over 70 women about how they figured out the way to become a fire starter, which, is just someone who pursues their desires, not just their obligations. And it was just an amazing, amazing experience and journey. And, we hear so much about what women are doing right now in middle age and beyond, which is great. But this book is really about the how.
Fabulous. What were the type of women, who were the type of women that you interviewed to get perspectives?
Really women from all walks of life. I think that the archetypes for this book that might be interested, women who have just graduated from high school or college and are trying to figure out what path to go down before they spend a lot of time pursuing something they're not that interested in, which a lot of the women I interviewed had that experience. Women who are young and might be overwhelmed by caretaking or career and want to figure out how to carve out time to do things that they want. Women like me who are new empty nesters who have all this time on their hands and they have sort of a new stage in life. And then, women who are retired, 70, 80 and beyond, who are still doing amazing things. And look, it doesn't have to be political, although I think the world is calling women right now to use their values, abilities, and desires to make change, but it could also be personal or professional. And I'll just give you one example of a story that's one of my personal favorites from the book. A woman named Carol Frick who wanted to be a writer. She ended up being a phys ed teacher for 30 years. When she retired, she started volunteering in an animal shelter and came up with the idea of a novel based on a couple who falls in love there. She
Mm.
taught herself how to write a book, how to create dialogue, how to put it all together. She decided at the end of this process that she deserved to be published. She didn't want to just self-publish. She sent her manuscript to 218 publishing houses and got rejected 218 times. On the 218th time, she got a book deal from a man who really likes dogs and ended up being a published author in her 70s. I think
Fabulous.
it's so important to know it's not too late to do what we want.
Absolutely. What were some of the mistakes that women have made, that you have made, that women can steer clear of, or at least be on the lookout for?
Well, the first is underestimating the impact of blowback.
Okay.
All the blowback you get when you decide to do something audacious or to live differently is predictable and none of it is personal. But it's very easy to feel it personally and to have it dissuade you from going after what you want. It's very unlikely your blowback will look like mine. I started receiving threats of death and sexual violence immediately after starting the Facebook page that became Moms Demand Action. But it could be, a snarky comment in the pickup line at school. It could be something a friend or a family member says. And a lot of times, I call those extinguishers in the book. A lot of times that blowback makes women turn back. And I really profile a lot of women in the book who endured blowback and how they got through it and got to the other side. And then the other piece of it is, can you guess if I ask you, what do you think the most common deathbed regret fear expressed by the women I interviewed was?
Not doing what they wanted to do.
It was actually doing what they wanted to do at the expense of their children.
Oh my.
That
My.
somehow pursuing what they wanted would make them a bad mom. And I think that we overestimate the importance of constantly being at every event and always being omnipresent. In fact, I interview psychologists in the book who say it's a lot of pressure on your kids to make them your whole life. They want to see you as a role model pursuing the things you want. I have kids that are all adults now, and they don't look back at my early years with Moms Demand Action and say, oh, you were so busy. I can't believe you didn't go to that soccer game in 2006. They say, thank you for giving us an example of how we can live as adults and pursue what we want.
Right. It also makes the assumption that all the parenting and all the obligation has to fall on the mother as opposed to the
Yes.
fathers who say, hey, I'm out of town. I missed this one. I'll catch the next one. It's a completely different mindset about what one's life work balance is, if we can use that archaic
Yeah, I mean,
expression.
I can tell you that my husband's deathbed regret will not be something that he didn't do as a parent. It will be some desire that he didn't fulfill, right? And
Yeah,
we all get to live asking ourselves, what do I want? That doesn't mean we don't fulfill the obligations we have, but it means for women, we don't leave our desires behind. And sometimes I think the word legacy is so loaded, this idea of you have to start a philanthropy or have your name on the side of a hospital. And a legacy is simply getting to the end of your life and knowing that you burned, that you lived audaciously and authentically in a way that was true to you. And we can get very close to the end of our lives and have that realization too late. And so I just want women to start having that conversation now.
absolutely. Your life is your legacy. That is your book, your legacy, your enduring presence in the world. One of the things that women are really commended for, and you can tell me whether it's universally true or not, is that because they are used to nurturing, caring, networking, being very social animals, that has incredible benefits in the philanthropy world, in the work world, whatever they're doing. Talk to us a little bit about women's people skills and emotional intelligence that gives them an advantage in some contexts.
Yeah, we also often refer to those as soft skills, which I think is really pejorative, as if
Yeah.
hard skills are more masculine and more aggressive and in some way more beneficial. I don't think that is in any way true, right? Moms Demand Action is the most effective, largest grassroots organization that's ever existed. We took on the most powerful, wealthy special interest, and we defeated them. And so I just think we should be thinking about our skill sets comprehensively. And in fact, the book is full of exercises and journal prompts. And one of those is to list everything you've ever had success at. Did you plan an amazing kid's birthday party? Did you plan a vacation and it went flawlessly? Like, list all of the things you've ever done that are successful because those are your abilities, and women tend to downplay them. And another part of the exercise is to ask other people what they think your abilities are, because we lose sight of it, right? And that list is a reminder to you that you are more than just what you are doing day to day. You have a lot of potential. And this is the fire formula. When you bring together your abilities, values, and desires. It's what happened for me at age 41 when I started Moms Demand Action. It's what I saw so many thousands of other women experience. You take that first baby step forward, you're supported by a community, and suddenly you realize you have all this potential.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I think that is a relief to women and an inspiration to women is to know that these are kind of universal issues. People tend to think everyone else is doing it, everyone else is success, everyone else is the magic formula. Talk to us a little bit about imposter syndrome
Mm.
and the sense that women do get reassurance, do get confidence boost by seeing not only the successes around them, but by the difficulties that they see other women having. It's not just an easy guide path for women who are successful.
No, these are the extinguishers that come from the blowback, right? So when you feel guilt and shame, when you get triggered, either externally or internally, that results in things like imposter syndrome or a fear of failure or perfectionism or martyrdom or a desire to disappear. I'd list all of these in the book and examples of all of them and how women have learned to overcome them. But it's really important to remember that, we need a community to live on fire, and that those other people are who lift us up. And, you know, I interview Eve Rodsky, who wrote Fair Play, and she talks about being CIYOO, complicit in your own oppression. The more we buy into these things, the more we believe that our obligations are actually our desires. I tell a story about a woman named Becca De Felice. She was one of only a handful of Asian American women to run for office in the state house in Texas. And she ran twice, she lost twice. And she said, even though men, everyone from Beto O'Rourke to Elon Musk, who fail, continue to be uplifted and have other opportunities, right? They sort of fail upward, even if they're good guys. And she said, I was a living, breathing example of what it looks like to fail, and people wanted me to disappear. And what she did instead was to take that experience of having lost when she ran for office. And now she runs Emerge America in Texas. And she teaches other women about what they're going to face when they run for office, right? And so I really think that we can use these fears that we have, these extinguishers, to uplift one another and to help get through that messy middle.
Wow. Fabulous book at an amazingly important time as women are deciding and redeciding what to do. And frankly, as you say, as the world cries out, and a lot of women are saying, well, how do I make a difference? What do I do? I feel like I want to make a difference. And your book, to a large extent, is about how to do that, how to fulfill your personal desires, but also obviously there's a societal benefit as well. So contrarians fired up, Shannon Watts. And Shannon, good luck with the book. And it's been a great pleasure to talk to you. We'll have you back soon.
Thanks so much, John.
You're welcome.